Welcome back to HavoKast, everybody. Hello, how are you doing? We are going to be talking about Iron Maiden's 1982 masterpiece, The Number of the Beast, continuing our theme of ranking songs within each studio album. Number of the Beast could easily be number one on anybody's list, so it is a fantastic album, top to bottom. It suffers from the fact that some of the songs are so strong that they outshine pretty decent songs on the album itself. And it's a unique problem to have where some of your songs are just so good on the album that some of the other songs are just not even mentionable in people's rankings and lists. But we're going to be talking about everything a little bit. We're going to be going into some fun facts and details, maybe some personal stuff with the band, because this is my favorite band. And something I love about Iron Maiden, and really music in general, is that whether we like the same things or not, it's all subjective. It's all up to our own ears and our own musical taste that can evolve and grow over time. It's feeling dependent, it's mood dependent, and I love that we can all just kind of openly discuss this and be proud of the things we enjoy and like. And Iron Maiden is such an accepting community when it comes to that, so I love that so much. It's, I've seen people ranking albums and there's some questionable stuff here and there, but that's questionable according to me and what I like. And everybody's just kind of like, hey, great list, although I'd rank it like this, and I think that's so awesome. I think that's a really cool, unique thing for, music in general, is like we can all agree to disagree, but it's fun to talk about either way. It's not a debate necessarily. It's just kind of a fun expression of what we love. And that's why I like doing these rankings. So we're going to go through all the Iron Maiden albums, and then eventually we'll compile a list of the top, however many songs, and just kind of rank those in order too. So this will kind of help us keep an idea of where my ranking is for these songs, and, compile it at the end. But we're going to go through Number of the Beast right now. And I am going to start us off at number 9, because we are going to be going through the 9 original studio release songs, even though the first time they released this album, they did not have 9 songs. Total Eclipse was left off, except the Japan version, I believe, and then the re-release had all 9 songs, but we're going to go through those. Anyway, number 9 is going to be Total Eclipse. It is a great song in context of songwriting. But for this album, like I say, just some of those songs, the top half of this ranking alone is just going to completely eclipse Total Eclipse, so to speak. But it feels kind of like a holdover song from the first couple of albums. Has one of those strong intros that's very unique to this song that you could just kind of recognize right away. It's well written. It sounds good. It doesn't sound like a song that was not meant to be on an album. It does sound like, it was recorded for the album and everything like that. So it's not like, it doesn't suffer from any I would say, lazy writing or filler. It's just not as standout as some of the other ones. Like I say, I think it's a great overall song, and I think everybody does well in the song, but there's nothing that really stands out. Children of the Damned, the solo's iconic, the song builds well, Hallowed Be Thy Name's an epic, Run to the Hills, that iconic, anthem song, of course. Like, every song has something pretty memorable on it for the most part, where Total Eclipse is just a well-written song. I could see it being one of the best songs on Killers, but it's on Number of the Beast, so it wasn't even originally worth putting on the album in the band's mind. And like I say, I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. And, anytime we get more Iron Maiden, especially 80s Iron Maiden, it's awesome. But, yeah, Total Eclipse is going to stay at 9. And it was bumped for Gangland, which is my number 8. Now, Gangland is interesting because it's one of, 2 songs on the album that feels like there were good ideas and good parts that were just kind of jumbled together. It's a song that doesn't get a lot of love. It's been known as like a filler song, or it's just there. And I think that's just because it's not composed totally well. With this one, I feel like there's pretty good parts. It's like the song Ride the Lightning, when I talked about that before. It's like there's pretty good parts here and there, but it's like they didn't know how to perfectly mold that into a song, which I think it's a good song still anyway. But, the drums are great. The harmony's great. The solo's great. But, the verses don't bridge the gap the way other songs do. Also, I think it's interesting to note that the vocal performances are very good on these songs that we've talked about, but the vocal performances on some of the others are literally, about as good as you can get. Some of the best work I've ever heard Bruce do on this album. Very good stuff, and it's a song that's outshined by other great songs on the album. So number 8's definitely going to stay Gangland. The other song that sounds a little kind of disjointed, a little like we just had a couple of good ideas and had to kind of forge them together. And a very interesting way to open the album was Invaders. Fun fact: this is the 3rd or 4th song I ever heard by Iron Maiden. My first ever song that I heard was 2 Minutes to Midnight. And then I downloaded Wasted Years, and I downloaded Deja Vu, and then Invaders. I wanted to kind of bounce around the albums a bit at the time. This was a long time ago. I think Brave New World had just been released. So I was really getting into Iron Maiden around the time they had the reunion. But yeah, I like to grab a couple of songs from different albums when I listen to new music, just because if I get a whole album, then I get used to that tone, I get used to that style, especially if it's like a concept album or has an overall theme. And, Iron Maiden, a lot of times, especially after Killers, every album had a specific tone and a specific style, and not necessarily a concept, but it does have like an overall like theme associated with the album when it comes to the writing style. And like I say, the tone, you can kind of pick off, hey, this song, if you don't know a whole lot about the band, but you can kind of tell what albums the songs are from just because of the tone. Like, it sounds very unique and very different. Now, Invaders, 2 Minutes to Midnight, Wasted Years all sound very different, but all sound very good. Invaders, like I say, is a weird way to start out the album. I think it's very kind of cut up. The song has just such a strange like chorus, very different for Iron Maiden, a very aggressive kind of intro, but it's a good song still. Now, normally I don't like this kind of song. I don't know if it has to do with being one of the first songs I ever got, but it's not super catchy. However, you get kind of caught up in the moment a little bit when you listen to it. You can sing it. You can kind of feel that beat. But it doesn't sound like typical Iron Maiden style. It is a very good song though, and like I say, quite a strange way to open the album up, which is funny because I always thought 22 Acacia Avenue or Children of the Damned might be a better way to open it up. Just the way they build up, and it feels like it flows so well, but man, Children of the Damned is, it's so good, I don't think you'd want to lead with something like that at the same time. So I totally get it, why they have the album set up this way. It's just, I don't know, I think it's a good song, but I don't think it's a great song in the grand scheme of things. I think everything after this is just so well written and composed all together as a song that it just kind of has to go above Invaders here. That being said, we're going to hit a fan favorite next, and I don't necessarily think this is that controversial, although who knows. But Run to the Hills at number 6. I think it is a great song. It's an anthem song. It's fun to hear. It's a song that I never seek out anymore, but when it comes on, I listen to it every time. It's quick. It gets to the point. Now, for me, I like the atmosphere in songs. I love harmonies in songs. And this was more of kind of a vocal flex for Bruce Dickinson. So that, in my mind, saves this from being kind of more of a lackluster Iron Maiden song. I love, like I say, for me personally, I love harmonies. Caught Somewhere in Time is a great example. It's got a great build-up. Obviously, it's an album. It's the title song on the album. It's the introduction song to the album, so it's got to be grand, but that's the kind of song I like. Infinite Dreams is another great example of this, where the song itself doesn't need to be, like, stand out in the album, but They have some great choruses and things like that in there. They have some great harmonies in there coming off of solos, and it just flows so well. It hits you, with that atmosphere. And Run to the Hills doesn't really have that atmosphere. It doesn't have that harmony. It doesn't have anything that really stands out other than overall as a song. It's so recognizable, so iconic, and it's so easy to get into. But that vocal flex that Bruce Dickinson does, he has the build-up, he has the scream, he has the storytelling in it as well. Like, you really feel the emotion of the song. And I think that really saves it from being anything else. Like, if Bruce didn't go as hard on this song as he did, I don't think it would be the song it is. Because if you really break it down, it's not super incredible or anything like that. Solo's great, but, you can say that about most Iron Maiden songs, really. It's always fun to listen to. Like I say, it's a song I never seek out, but I like to hear when it does come on. So for that reason, it's going to number 6. I think there's some much better, well-written songs on this album. As an overall composition, it's a great song. It flows well, but the writing itself is just not there for me. So it's going to be number 6. However, an underrated song, The Prisoner, I think that's going to be number 5. I like the way it's written. I like the way it sounds. And for me, it's another one that's just a good story. It also is kind of like a 2-part song because I believe Back in the Village kind of is the part 2 where you kind of follow up with The Prisoner. It sounds good. It sounds like a song that was really thought about when they were recording it. And I think it's a great, it just has a great flow to it. Now this, to me, is kind of more of a filler than any song on the album, but I think it's a very tasteful filler song where it actually works very well. I don't think it was meant to, well, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't meant to be a filler song, but I do think that The Prisoner itself is just overshadowed by the top 4. I think it would get a lot more love if the top 4 songs weren't as strong, but they're very strong songs. And, The Prisoner, it's got a good solo. It's got a good lead up to the solo. The chorus is just so catchy. The feeling of like, hey, I got to break free. It's a song theme that was very prominent in Killers, so there was a little holdover to that as well on this album. But since it's only one of maybe 2 songs that feel that way, it doesn't feel like, okay, we're talking about this again, unless you listen to Killers and then you listen to The Prisoner, and then it's like, all right, more of this, huh? Really the first 2 albums, you got so many songs where it was like, Running Free and Sanctuary and all these songs where, Iron Maiden and Killers were just talking about like getting away. I got to run, I got to go. And The Prisoner kind of feels that way too. We got to break free and this and that. But, it's not a big negative. It's just something interesting to note. But yeah, it's going to be a comfortable number 5, kind of right in the middle. Same way it is in the album, just kind of right there, Number 4, we're going to go with Number of the Beast. And this song, of course, is iconic. It is a fan favorite, and it is such a good song. I think outside of it being played a lot and very recognizable, it's just a quintessential 80s song. It sounds very 80s. It's one that I think suffers from everybody kind of knows it. And if you say you like Number of the Beast, then people are like, oh, okay, yeah, it's a good song. Do you like any others? They kind of think you don't know much about Iron Maiden. But it is still an actual good song. So I think a lot of people are kind of more afraid to admit they really like that song, and it's a great song overall, which, people, like I say, Iron Maiden's pretty chill about that kind of, like, the fans that I have encountered are all pretty chill about that, just like what they like. But I definitely think, like, if you're looking at music rankings and people that are, they're analyzing music and stuff, the ones that talk about this song specifically sometimes are the ones that don't really know the band, and then other times there are ones that really try to avoid talking about it because they want to look like they know more about the band. So, I mean, I get it. for me personally, I couldn't care less. It is a really catchy, well-written song. There's a lot of cool parts in there, and I mean, it's the one that really launched the band. I mean, that song, controversy surrounded it. It's a song that people loved listening to and playing. It's a song that's been in the live shows many, many times. It's just one of those iconic songs that's actually good. So, because the song Iron Maiden itself is pretty iconic, but it's not like a great song, But Number of the Beast is definitely iconic and very well written. I think the guitar parts, too, like they really have a lot of feeling in there, which is something this whole album really has, actually. Later on in a few albums, you don't have that same kind of passion or feel. Mostly the 90s albums, really, I guess, but at this time, they were really giving it their all. The writing was just on point, and the title tracks are always super strong in Iron Maiden. But this title track really held up. Now we're talking about the next three, which again, these three songs really just take this album to the stratosphere. But we're gonna go 22 Acacia Avenue next. Like I say, I feel like it would be a great way to open a show or an album or something. I mean, just the build-up is great, but it's not too much of a build-up. A lot of the newer songs they write, they have a lot of build-up in the songs, which is not always a bad thing, especially if it creates atmosphere. The Talisman for me is one where I love the Talisman, and it's got a long intro, but I like that long intro. Same with Lord of Light. I like the intro. I think it kind of brings things down. If your heart's racing, it'll kind of calm you down and get you in a quiet place and then just kind of explode onto the scene. This one does that, but in a very quick way, quick pace. And 22 Acacia Avenue is the most 80s sounding song on this album. It is just so riff heavy, and the guitars just are all over the place in such a good way. It's a great mix of writing and technique and a great mix of catchiness. It really is a well-composed song because there's some very different defined parts. The harmonies are incredible on here. The solo's great. Bruce is just doing his thing. He sounds passionate. He sounds like he's really in this song. And it's cool. It continues that Charlotte the Harlot series. There's 4 songs in that series, and it's interesting that they kind of kept those themes throughout. I like the callbacks, and I like this. It's subtle callbacks too. It's not like you're just blatantly saying, oh yeah, there's this person, there's this thing, we have to reference it. It's it's part of the story, but it just kind of keeps it moving. Love that. Very tasteful writing. But yeah, the song itself is just fantastic. And it's not like anything else on the album. I got this song because I was still doing bits and pieces of the discographies and stuff like that, just to see okay, I want to have a non-biased opinion about going into the albums and the whole discography of this band that I'm really getting into. And I heard this and I was just like, wow, that is a powerful intro. And this was one of the last songs I got before I just got the entire discography. And at the time, like I say, I think Dance of Death was on the horizon. So I was really excited for that being my first new kind of album that is coming out. I was in high school or middle school at the time, so I was still, learning the world and music and everything like that, getting into things and, learning who I was. And Iron Maiden was just I was very lucky to have just kind of stumbled upon them when I did, because they have been with me ever since. And I think this song and a few of the other ones from this album specifically, and Somewhere in Time, Power Slave, just absolutely, solidified that for me. But yeah, we'll move on to number 2. The number 2 song on the album for me is going to be Children of the Damned. And my God, what an underrated song this is. It's so crazy how this song gets underrated and overlooked because it's just so good. It's so unique. If a lot of songs sound the same on an album, which, again, Iron Maiden has specific tones and themes throughout albums usually. So some songs can just kind of fall into the fold for anybody who's not really hardcore listening to the whole discography. But Children of the Damned is just so good. I mean, this song, The tone specifically is very sharp, very hard hitting, but it doesn't get, it doesn't get gross and muddy or anything like that. It stays kind of stand out. The only weird thing about this song is the tapping bit in the solo sounds a little out of time sometimes, or a little out of sync. But it's not a big deal. It's just something I notice every time. Even with that, though, I think the build-up is great. The storytelling is great. The passion in Bruce's voice. I mean, the whole song is just fantastic. I love it. And it's something I usually look for this song. It's one of those songs where, a few of the songs on this album, if they come on, I'm listening to them. A few of them I seek out. This song, I'm like, I am in the mood for this song. I need it now. And so when it is time to drive somewhere, or, I'm just listening to music, working on something, this song does frequently end up in the rotation. It's just, I don't know, it's just that kind of song. I love it. But I don't think this is a big surprise. That number one song on this album, Hallowed Be Thy Name, is just, I mean, it's in a league of its own. It's iconic. It's classic. It never gets old. Incredible storytelling, incredible build-up all the way through. It's just such an incredible way to end the album. Live show staple. I mean, they play this quite often for good reason. It's unbelievable. It's one of those songs that gets you pumped up no matter what. It's got everything Iron Maiden needs. It's got everything you want from an Iron Maiden song. It's got a great build-up. It's not too long. Doesn't overstay its welcome. Like I say, great storytelling, great writing, great harmonies, an awesome solo. Bruce is just going wild at the end. It's a song you sing along with. You can't help but sing along with. It's just one of the perfect songs. I mean, I feel like top 10, top 5 material. And even depending on how I'm feeling, it doesn't change typically. Some of the songs, you might be more pumped up, more of a gym song, more of a driving song, more of an atmosphere kind of song. This song has it all. I mean, it's just always something I can get in the mood to listen to, and I'll have it on a live stream. I'll have it on when I'm working. You'll hear it just kind of in passing sometimes. But yeah, you really, I don't know. This is one of those songs, if you have not heard it, you're missing out. It is definitely, on this album especially, with all these anthem songs like Run to the Hills, The Number of the Beast, Hallowed Be Thy Name really stands out as kind of an iconic but well-written, but also anthem-y kind of song, crowd pleaser, but also you want to hear it. It's everything. It's so good because, there are some songs you hear over and over and you're like, that's a good song, but I don't need to hear it again. That's a good song, but, they just play it because it's a live staple. But now this one, it's like, I heard it a couple of times live, and every time I was like, I want to hear it again live, I try to collect, like, different live songs and different shows where it's like, okay, they played, Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner this time, and that was awesome. They played, Moonchild this show, and that was awesome. But Hallowed Be Thy Name is one of those where, like, I'd like to hear it most times I go to Iron Maiden shows. So, it's not like I'm just kind of collecting that one. Like, that's one I look for. But that, it wasn't super easy to do this one. The top 3 were tough to decide between. Hallowed Be Thy Name was kind of going to be number 1 the whole time. But, the middle songs, they're all good. They're all good in their own way. The bottom 3 could be, middle to some of the higher up songs easy. They're good songs in their own right. This is a tough album to go through, and I think the next few albums, for the most part, are kind of going to be the same way. Peace of Mind, there's definitely some clear cut, top songs and bottom songs, and, the middle tier is not super muddy. Power Slave, kind of the same thing, but then Somewhere in Time and Seventh Son, it's tougher to get through. And then when you get into the 90s, it's going to be the exact opposite problem. Some of those albums are so just dry and lackluster, nothing really stands out. Good songs on them, but not like this stuff. This album was awesome. It's definitely classic. It's definitely, top 3, 4 in the discography of Iron Maiden. And even if it's not, it's still understandable because there's so many good things they've done. But, man, what a classic. Just overall. This was really fun to do. I cannot thank you enough for hanging out here. And like I say, please throw your list down below if you do want to talk about any of the songs on here. Anything you've seen live, anything you wish you could see live. I mean, I'd love to see 22 Acacia Avenue at some point. I know it was played Beast over Hammersmith, and that was just freaking amazing, but I was not alive at the time, so it is what it is. We're going to do Peace of Mind next. I'm not sure when, but probably pretty soon. And, yeah, y'all, please have a fantastic rest of your day. I will see you in the next video.